Usually I be running around chasing women, but it's a lot of O's in the kitchen. We got a lot of soul, yeah, we get it. You can't trust soul in it, Benny. It's a lot of fake love and pretending. I swear I'm spent like a rose up in Lennox. Shit crazy, could've had a roll before 20. This is a whole nother 20. I love when that money talk to me. Like your girl, when we fuck, she talk to me. She love when I bite on that pussy. If you searching for love, keep looking. I'm so body looking, yeah. I'm so body looking.
Welcome back to the Coliseum of Fantasy Knowledge. This is the IDP Fantasy Empire coming at you with the end of Week 14. We just watched the end of Monday Night Football. I pulled it off, man, by 0.2 points in our league. I beat the number one seed in our playoffs, man.
Yep, this is a big money league. Paul and I are both in it. So is our buddy Phil Berry and a bunch of Texas guys. Just some Kansas boys whooping up on some Texas boys.
Thank you, George Kittle, for your 34 points. I love you. I'm going to probably buy your jersey now.
I wouldn't go that far, but...
Man, 34 points out of the tight end spot, man. It basically canceled out and gave me more points than he had for Holton Hill. Or not Holton Hill, I'm sorry, T.Y. Hilton. I'm on a Holton Hill thing because I'm reading about him. But I'm excited, man. I did not think it was going to win or it was going to happen. Now I get to play you in the Big Money League next week. So I get,
a couple leagues, actually.
Yeah, we're actually playing each other in our Dynasty as well. So, I can't wait to get a couple wins, get close to that championship, dethrone the tyrant. That's what it's all about. Just taking down your friends.
3-year winning streak over here, holding the crown. I really do hope that somebody de-seeds me sometime soon. It's getting pretty lonely up here.
I know. I think what I'm going to do in the offseason is add a couple of my friends and then trade them for their first-round picks so I can have a draft and just take everyone at the top of the draft.
Art of the deal, man.
I love it. That's my plan, new plan. All right, so going into Week 14, we did have some injuries from this week's games. Matt Milano is done for the season with a fractured fibula, so everyone apparently is breaking bones this week. Iggy Ansah did end up hurting his shoulder, and most likely he's probably going to be done for the rest of the season. I don't see him. He'll probably go somewhere else. I feel like the Baltimore Ravens would be a good place for him for whatever reason. I don't know why. Isaac Yiadom is expected to miss probably next week with a separated shoulder. He's that rookie out of Boston College for the Broncos.
That sucks because they just lost Chris Harris.
Yep. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they move each person around in that. So I don't know exactly. They'll probably go to Tremaine Brock, I'm assuming, because they play on Saturday, so this is a short turnaround game for them. They will have some Saturday games. We will cover those for next week as well. 2 Saturday night games. Pretty much all the young blood teams, the young quarterback teams playing. You got the Browns, you have the Jets, and who's the other rookie? Bills? The Bills play? No.
Bills.
Someone else. There's another rookie. A lot of rookies are playing. Or young quarterbacks. So it's kind of nice. I like it when they go back to doing Saturday games. It makes it more fun. Robert Kimdiche, defensive lineman from the Cardinals, was placed on injured reserve for a knee injury that will effectively end his season. Let's see. Bryce Callahan. I always want to call him Calhoun. Freaking Tommy boy. He hurt his foot week 14 against the Rams. We're not sure what he's going to do. I know that McMains came in and he replaced him in the slot. So we'll see how that goes moving forward. Ogbani Onarakwo was inactive this week against Chicago. It was kind of a late scratch too. They didn't really say anything about it on anything, anywhere. And that's really about it as of now until this stuff comes out about Monday night. But Matt Milano, that's a significant one because he's been playing really good lately.
Yeah, I've had him in almost every league. It's going to be tough for me because I can't find a backup replacement at this point in the season.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult one. And that's why we're here to help you possibly give you people that you can go pick up and replace players that you are now missing. All right, I'll start it off this week. I'm going to start with my shortest game with the shortest notes I have, and that is the Lions at the Cardinals. This game had some good plays, but it didn't have enough to be considered a really good game defensively. It was just kind of an average game for me. For the Cardinals, you have Reddick going 11 for 10, 2 tackles for loss, Bethea 8 for 7, Amerson 7 of 6. Buddha does have a strip fumble on LeGarrette Blount and recovers it himself. Reddick makes a great read for a tackle for loss. It's something I saw him doing a lot. I feel like he's learning the opposition's playbooks a little bit faster. I mean, I know it's down near the end of the season, but that's something to look forward to as of next year going into his third year. Cardinals are playing a good game at the line. Maluga is batting balls, or I think it's Maluga. Mayuga? It's Mayouga. Mayuga? I don't know. I just made like a funny car horn in my sound, like Mayuga. But he's batting balls and getting pressure consistently. I haven't seen much from Jones today. I really thought that he would be out there, Chandler would be out there getting a little bit more involved. I kept waiting for it. It never happened. And Trey Boston is also being very quiet. It's probably because I started him in my lineup in Dynasty, so that's probably why he didn't only put up 5 points. It's whatever. I should play Kenny Moore, but I still won.
Happens.
Yeah, and I don't understand, for someone who throws the ball as much, and the fact they were down to really essentially LeGarrette Blount and Theo Riddick, I thought I would have seen more from Trey Boston. Next week, their game is going to be at the Falcons. There's really no one that I want to go pick up, except for maybe Emerson. I thought he played a really good game, and he's kind of coming in relief, and he's getting kind of moved around the field, which can be a good and bad thing, especially playing at Atlanta, where they tend to score a little bit faster. For the Lions, you have Davis going 8 for 7, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, 1 pass defense. You have Robinson going 8 for 4, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and Quinn going 6 for 5. Harold does a great job and chases down Rosen off the line. I really like seeing these young guys get after the quarterback and just continuing pursuit. Snacks literally falls with a guard to get a tackle. That's how good he is. He's using other players to get tackles. Just saying. And surprisingly, he didn't finish top 3. But honestly, the Cardinals kind of gave up on the run game probably midway through the second quarter, and they didn't really go back to it. I'm sorry for any of you all who bought into the David Johnson hype. I tried to warn you all. It probably wasn't going to be the same as it was 2 years ago. I tried. And I told people to stay away so many times. Davis attacks for a tackle of loss on a screen. I mean, the dude is playing so good yesterday, man. This is one of the best games I've seen him play in where he's just more he looks more athletic than the other guys that are around him, is what it looked like. He even had a play later where he smacked Johnson in the flat and essentially next play ended the drive with a sack. I mean, the guy's playing out of his mind. Snacks gets a tackle for loss later. It's something I'm not surprised about. He's really good at just keeping his motor going until he gets a tackle. Later on in the game, Slay really kind of turns the tide around and gets a pick 6 and takes it to the house. Something we don't see from him often is getting pick 6s, but I feel like he does turn one over every once in a while where he gets a scoring opportunity. For the Lions, their next game is going to be at the Bills. I expect this one to be a cold game. Usually in the cold game, I feel like the D-backs are going to kind of quiet down a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Diggs back in the top 3 next week. Would not shock me at all. I also think that Snacks is probably going to return to the top 3 next week. I'm a big fan of his, man. The more I watch him, the more I love him. And honestly, the way I'm going to be doing my scouting this year for the D linemen is I'm going to be comparing them a lot to him. Him and Kenny Clark, and then one other guy is who I'm going to be comparing them to. I want to see that kind of pressure from my defensive tackles.
Nice. Is that all you got for that game?
That's it, man. It's a pretty short game for me.
All right, I've got the Giants versus the Redskins. For the Giants, I've got Alec Ogletree leading the team, going 3 of 8, 2 pass breakups and an interception. Thomas going 3 of 6, a pass breakup and an interception. Vernon going 4 of 5 with 1.5 sacks. He's really come on strong as of late. Carter going 4 of 5 with the sack. Chandler, Morrow, and Martin all getting sacks. Martin did end up getting a half sack. Riley ended up getting a pick 6. It's one of those guys, again, who has become a monster for this team, playing that opposite role of Landon Collins, who is out for the rest of the season. Sean Chandler is in for Landon Collins. Kareem Martin forces a floater for the Riley pick 6. He was just getting pressure in on the quarterback. Olivier Vernon is in on the backfield most of the game. We've talked about him and how he's come on late. He's always been that player, you know. The biggest problem for him has been injuries. I think he's finally corrected that, and I think he's healthy right now. Alec Ogletree is ball hawking. He makes his pick off a tip ball. He's finishing tackles. This is everything we expected to see from Ogletree. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too late. The defense starts to get soft when they're up 40. The last 16 minutes of the game, they start breaking. Next week, they play versus the Titans, which has been historically a porous offensive line for defensive linemen. I'm going to pick up Olivier Vernon. I think he's going to have an opportunity to get a couple sacks against Marcus Mariota. For the Redskins, you'll never believe this, Dejon Hamilton. Goes 5 of 8. Clinton Dix goes 5 of 7 for a pass breakup as well. Kerrigan goes 4 of 6 with a sack. Mason Foster goes 4 of 6 with a pass breakup and an interception. Payne gets a sack. I think you're safe to say, or safe to start any right end against the Redskins left tackle. Zach Brown is getting limited playing time this week. Hamilton is playing over Brown in the first half. My best guess is they're seeing what Hamilton can do with Brown being in a contract year. I expect them to play Hamilton a little bit more in the weeks to come, and I would not be starting Brown in your fantasy matchups. Brown was back in on the second half. Did not end up becoming a top 4 guy for us. Stroman ends up dropping a pick, and the Giants have backups in to start the fourth quarter. Next week they're against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I would pick up Hamilton wherever he's available. I wouldn't necessarily start him, but if you are in dire need of a linebacker and you're in a moderately deep league, I would go ahead and start him because he's shown that he's productive. Especially against Fournette, you know.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Spin Move. All right, my next game up was the Jets at the Buffalo Bills. I always seem to get these AFC East matchups. You got the Patriots and Dolphins this week, and I got the Jets and Bills this week. For the Bills, the home team, Edmonds went 8 for 5, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass defense, 1 INT. First INT of his career. Milana goes 6 for 6, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 broken fibula. Poyer goes 6 for 6. Edmonds gets beat by Buster Speed on the outside, and honestly, I'm not surprised. Buster is a fast dude. Alexander manhandles the running back McGuire with a hit. It was nasty. Like, Alexander could have probably just retired after that and been just good. Just fine. Roberts is eating the Bills in special teams. That kid is really something special to watch on special teams, man. He just knows what to do. He did have a muff later on, but we're discounting that one because the rest of the play was awesome. Milano dives at the ankles and misses a tackle for loss. Edmonds misses a tackle for loss, and then later gets his first NFL pick on a bad decision by Arnold. My thing with Edmonds has been all year, whenever I watch him, I see the innate goodness, and then I see the innate badness. And it usually goes back-to-back plays. Like, he'll make one play where he misses, like he did, and then a play later, 2 plays later, he makes a pick. And I'm just like, if you can be consistent, man, you would definitely be up in that Darius Leonard discussion as Rookie of the Year. You know, if you could just continue that.
Yeah. You say innate, which means they're born with it. Do you think he is limited in his production, or do you think that he's got a cap on him just because of his lack of play at the NFL level?
I don't know if it's necessarily the cap. I think he has room to expand, but as of now, I'm seeing the same inconsistencies that I saw in college.
Yeah. And you know, remember, he was the youngest player to come out in this draft.
Yeah, and I'm not down that at all. I'm taking that all into consideration. But, you know, I've seen other guys, you know, like look at Darius Leonard. I don't think any of us expected this kind of production. Yeah. So I got to hold everyone else who's drafted above him in a higher space than Darius Leonard was.
I think going forward, I think it's important in our draft process is to realize the roles that they had in college for their college team. Mm-hmm. Darius Leonard, one of those guys that was the focal point for the whole team at what? South Carolina State. Yeah. So that may play some importance going forward. Granted, he fell in the perfect position with the Indianapolis Colts. It's a wasteland. All over the field, it's a wasteland.
Oh, yeah.
So I think with more production from guys on the outside, the D-backs, I think that may stifle away some of his points.
And I was thinking this week, if they could get Greedy Williams on the outside, get them like honestly, what I feel like is a more true number one cornerback, that could lighten up everything for everybody.
Yeah. One guy that he's reminding me of right now is Sean Witherspoon, a guy that played for Arizona, really, and I think Atlanta, didn't he?
Yeah, he did play for Atlanta.
But one of those guys that was on a bad defense, and he was just taking advantage of the opportunities he was given. I wouldn't necessarily say that Darius Leonard is the best athlete in the draft class, though.
Oh, no, I'm not saying the athlete at all.
Right.
I think him and Edmonds are more athletically bound, and those two are closer together than, say, like Roquan Smith, who's another athlete completely.
Okay.
Like Roquan Smith's a way quicker linebacker than those two guys.
Yeah. I ask you these questions kind of to smoke check both of us and to smoke check the listeners. Darius Leonard's having a tremendous season. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. But I think Roquan Smith can be at that same level, if not better. And I think he was in the game that I watched in him most recently.
Yeah, and Roquan has done one of those. He's steadily progressed. I've seen steady progression from him all season as well.
Remember, he was out most of the first half of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was late. He was one of the last ones to sign his rookie contract as well. So he's one of the last ones getting into camp.
So that's something else that we take forward in our draft process. Something that we both knew, but let's put more emphasis on it going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't ever try to look into agents too much, but that agent always has his guys are like two of the last ones that always get into sign their rookie contracts. I believe he's also Darnold's dude too.
Right.
And I think Darnold was the second to last person to sign. All right. So, let's see. The Bills end up losing the game because they can't stop a 4th-and-2 run on the goal line by McGuire. No one can get to him. They just run a simple sweep to the outside, and he scores. Ends the 6-game losing streak for the Jets, though, so at least he's not fired yet. So their next game is going to be at home versus the Lions, as I talked about. For me, the only guy, there's really no one that I'm super, super hyped for. Again, I'm still on the Poyer bandwagon. If you can get him, get him. I've been saying that the last 3 weeks, and he's been producing. All right, for the Jets, you have Claiborne going 8 for 8, Hewitt going 8 for 5 and a half sack, Ski Ryan going 5-4, 1 tackle for loss. And yes, I said Ski Ryan because I like it. Jordan Jenkins is spying on Allen. Okay, you have Jordan Jenkins spying on Allen. You know, Allen, who's a bigger dude that people don't think can run, but then he misses a tackle, and Allen makes one of his many runs in this game. I don't know for sure, but I felt like he was the top rusher because every time he was getting these runs of like 15, 20 yards. He was killing them with his legs. Usually I thought he'd be killing him with his arm, but no, he's like, I got both. Watch this. Hold my beer. I got this. Pierre Lewis punches the ball out, and Adams recovers it. Jets get a great turnover. I love a good punch-out, man. That's one of my favorite things to watch. The Jets are not respecting Allen's running plays, and it was apparent all game long. Later on, Johnson does get a bad decision interception. And then one play that I really liked, and it wasn't even a fantasy-relevant play, but Adams comes in on a blitz, which he does most of the time. Probably say 60% of the time it feels like he goes on blitzes. He comes in and he knows he's not going to get to the running back, but he literally uses his body to help redirect the running back. Instead of the running back being able to close off the lane, which he's now open, he pushes his player back. And so the running back has no choice. He can't cut back and laterally. So he has to cut over, and then he goes right into the middle of the pile. It was just one of those plays that you don't really see until you're like, oh, shit, look what he just did. Like, he just literally rechanged that whole play. So that's something that I've been seeing from Adams, and that play right there just shows me how smart he's becoming as a good football player. Later on, Anderson blocks a field goal, one of the few kicks. We didn't really have blocked kicks last week, surprisingly. We'd had a whole bunch before then. We didn't really have any last week. Muff kick lands the Jets on a short field on their defense, who is just out on the field. Allen's legs are later on in this game creating passing windows in the second half, and the Jets just aren't fast enough to get there to cover in most of those situations. The Jets do get a reprieve, though, and Johnson ends up getting a pick that would end the game, his second one. They really talked about the narrative, the fact that he got paid so much coming over for the Rams. I don't think that had anything to do with it. Honestly, I think Allen just made a couple really bad choices in throwing balls. I feel like with all the rookies that I watched this week, their turnovers were just bad decisions or rush decisions. The worst ones I saw was Darnold, Mahomes, and Allen in that order of young quarterbacks making bad decision throws and causing turnovers. Of course, I did not watch the Goff and Trubisky game, so I don't know about the interceptions because they had a bunch.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Their next game is going to be at home versus the Texans. I like Claiborne. I liked him a couple weeks ago, and now he's finally hitting his stride tackle-wise. I think you're going to get about the same thing you're going to see from the Bills. You're going to see them stretch the field, and they're going to rely on the run early, but then they're going to stretch the field if they get behind or it's a close game.
Right on. That's all you got?
Yes.
All right. I've got the Patriots versus the Dolphins. The Thrilla in Manila.
Thrilla in Manila.
For the Patriots, Devin McCourty goes 5-7. Vinoy goes 4-6 with half a sack. Flowers goes 4-4 with 2 sacks. Jason McCourty goes 4-4. Hightower gets a sack. Simmons gets a sack. Jones gets half a sack, and there were no interceptions for the Patriots. Hightower got roasted by Tannehill on a play-action boot. Hightower's one of those guys that's kind of a freak. It's kind of rare to see him get beat by Tannehill. Always injured. One of those guys that I wouldn't necessarily pick up. But if you absolutely needed a guy, I would consider him. Obviously Van Noy over him, though. McClellan ends up getting 2 blocked punts.
Dang.
By himself. If you're in a super deep league and you have, say, 32 teams, you may have played him, but I highly doubt anybody played him and got those 2 blocked punts.
I doubt it. If you did, let us know.
Right.
Sure. On
Twitter, we're at IDP Empire. Our email is idpfantasyempire@gmail.com. Our website is idpfantasyempire.com. Again, we'll start rolling out our premium podcast into the season. We're going to start doing that for rookie previews. I think Paul and I are still considering going to the Senior Bowl.
I plan on going. I don't know if he's going to go. I'll go by myself.
All right. We've got Flowers and Claiborne.
Gotta give me some red beans and rice, man.
Both being disruptive, and Flowers is looking very productive today. Again, he had 2 sacks. He went 4-4, constantly in the backfield. I think it's interesting to see how special teams change after 2 blocked punts and how do they prevent it. We saw the Dolphins switch this up. I know there's not really a chance to talk about special teams, but since we're that defensive niche group, I feel like it's necessary to talk about special teams because no one else is doing it in the league.
Mm-hmm.
The Patriots play the Steelers next week at the Steelers. Devin McCourty has put up 3 solid games in a row. I'm going to pick him up. I think he is tasked with shutting down Juju Smith-Schuster. There's a lot of fantasy points to be made there. For the Dolphins, Kiko Alonso goes 8 of 10. McMillan goes 5 of 9. McDonald goes 6 of 8. Fitzpatrick goes 6 of 7. McCain gets a sack. Quinn gets a sack. And there were no interceptions. Minka is in for Xavier Howard. He's out this week. I believe he's going to be out next week as well. Minka Fitzpatrick, one of those guys that you could pick up. I think that's an easy chalk play. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. Alonso is cleaning up everything underneath. Again, the Patriots like to throw crossers. They like to throw guys over the middle, and really it's wide open for Alonso. Wake and Quinn are crushing the pocket from both sides. Next week, the Dolphins are at the Vikings. Baker is going to be the guy that I pick up. That's Jerome Baker. He was quiet this game, but he comes up clutch in big games, and I think they're really going to need him if they make a playoff push. I'm sure you guys have seen the video, but Kenyon Drake ends up getting a lateral all the way back for a touchdown.
And the Dolphins, once again, beat the Patriots. There's 2 things the Patriots can't win or can't beat. Eli Manning in the Super Bowl or the Dolphins in Miami. Those are 2 facts of life. Love it. So I guess they had Bobby Wagner mic'd up. I guess we missed it at one point, but he was like, they can't throw, they can't pass. What they going to do? I love it. That cracks me up. All right, my next game was another divisional matchup with the Saints at the Bucks. This game was a rematch of the Week 1 loss that the Saints had, hoping not to repeat it. It was a great little deal they did going into the game. I enjoyed it. I think my dad actually watched most of this game because he wasn't really watching the Chiefs game, but he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I'm watching the Saints and whoever the hell's in red. I'm like, oh, the Buccaneers? Yeah, I don't know them either. Love my dad. He cracks me up with that stuff. For the Bucks, you go David going 10 for 9, JPP going 8 for 7, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass defense. You have Taylor going 6 for 4, 1 pass defense, 1 INT. The Bucks are stuffing the run game hard in the first quarter. Whitehead with a big hit over the middle. Later on, Taylor gets a pick off a screen pass. I like it. I mean, it's one of those, the Saints are going to run a lot of screens. So the fact that he was able to get out there and get that pick was awesome. Nassib gets a strip sack. Fullback dump-off beats the defense. Kamara then gets a 2-point conversion. A fullback scored. A fullback. They still have those.
Devlin scored as well.
Wow. Fullbacks are still a thing, people. Still a thing. I remember the John Kuhn days, man. Those are like some of the offset glory days.
John Kuhn, Mike Allstott, John Ritchie.
I like Ripkowski too, but he just never got the lore of Kuhn. I miss the old days. Ingram kills the D by shredding floor blocks and literally dragging Davis into the end zone. The Bucks look really tired, and they're getting sloppy in their tackling in the fourth quarter. I feel like they were just getting run down by the fast pace that the Saints set, and that I think inevitably cost them the game. It's just they're just tired, man. The next game is going to be at the Ravens. I think this could be a good matchup for the Ravens because the Ravens are a run-first team. If they keep playing Lamar, they're going to be a run-first team. So I would still look for the linebackers to have huge numbers. Who's the other linebacker? Is that David? No. They got what now? Quan's gone, so all they got is David and Taylor. Is that the other linebacker right now? So I mean, I'd probably go after Taylor if I had the choice, but yeah, they're gonna run. So you know what you're expecting here. For the Saints, honestly, to sum up the Saints defense, they played Saints defense. It was good enough. Got them out the game. Davis went 8 for 7, 1 pass defense. M. Williams goes 6 for 4, and Lattimore goes 5 for 5, 2 pass defenses, and 1 INT to seal the game. Williams out here, and he was just balling over the middle, man. He was not letting anyone catch nothing over the middle. Loved it. Brait was just beating up the Saints defense. A quarterback blocked a kick. Blocked a punt.
Tyson Hill.
Tyson Hill.
That guy's a freak, man.
That dude's crazy.
He is a special teams ace and an offensive utility knife.
Yeah.
He's crazy, man.
He's eventually become like a defensive stud.
Yeah.
They're probably just going to train him at like cornerback, slot corner next year. Just have him out there ball hawking. Jordan gets a sack. I felt like Cam Jordan really came on in the second half. I feel like he's really wreaking havoc. I feel like he got the late juice. And I feel like both teams are trying to prove the opposite of each other in week one. And what I mean is their mentalities going into it. These guys were going hard in the first 3 quarters. And then I think they all were just getting a little tired by the fourth. I think that Florida swamp air was just getting to them after a while. They're just getting gassed. Lattimore, again, picks off the ball that really essentially ends the game. The Saints are going to be going to the Panthers next week. It's funny. They play the Panthers twice. They play them this week, and then they play in week 17.
Which is weird.
What I think is funny, which they do that a lot in the NFC South. Or NFC South. I see that every year. What I think is funny is they gave them a 65% chance to win at Carolina, but then an 85% to win at home. I'm like, how is there a 20% difference in these two? They're not going to change that much. Going to Carolina is not that scary for the Saints. Maybe back a couple of years ago when they couldn't win a damn road game, but this year they've been proven that they can win on the road. So I think that's a weird narrative and a weird percentage to try to throw out there. But for the Saints next week, honestly, there's not really anyone that I'd pick up that I shouldn't already be owned. I'm going to probably stick with the consistent dudes at this point.
All right, I've got the next game. It is the Colts versus the Texans. There was something interesting about this game. Going into it, one of my defensive tackles, I think it was DJ Reader, was hurt. Not necessarily hurt. I didn't expect him to have a good game. So I picked up Danico Autry. I saw him play for the Raiders when I was a Raiders fan, and he's played really well. Seeing him on this line with Marcus Hunt, Adams, Jabal Sheard, and the others, he's been really impressive. He ended up getting me 17.5 points, helped me get a decisive win over my opponent, and I'm very thankful. Thank you, Danico Autry. All right, Darius Leonard leads the team. He goes 9 of 12 with a sack and a pass breakup. Walker goes 7 of 11 with a pass breakup. Gathers goes 6 of 9 with a pass breakup. Kenny Moore goes 6 of 7 with a sack. Autry gets 2 sacks. Hunts gets a sack, and there were no interceptions. Kenny Moore is always sent on overload blitzes. He's been very lucky and successful, kind of like the kid from the Panthers, Dante Jackson and Reed. They like to send them kind of in the same sort of blitz packages. Adams is playing more this game. That's the Adams kid, number 49. I forget his first name. Anyways, this kid, he's kind of impressive. He's poor in coverage, though. Really that pass rush specialist that helps him and Sheard be on opposite sides and go after that quarterback. I absolutely hate these hits on defensive wide receivers. I think they're ticky-tack. There's one this game. The guy was reaching over the goal line for a touchdown, and he got hit. What are you going to do, man?
Yeah, I don't know.
You're going to swat the ball? Is that what you're supposed to do?
Yeah,
we talked about it last week.
Look at even the offensive. They had an offensive pass interference call because they said he made contact. nothing. Like it was
that the push off?
Yeah, the Dallas Goedert play. Yeah. That was bullcrap. Yeah. Like even me, I'm like, how? What? Like that? There's no way that's a foul, man.
Yeah.
Like I understand some of these defenseless hits, but some of these offensive players go into that. Like I feel like some of them initiate that stuff. It's just like Zeke got called with that helmet to helmet that he initiated. And should have bounced him out with a concussion, but that's the NFL's thing. That's their thing to worry about, not mine.
Yeah, and then he gets his hand taped. Wasn't that it?
Oh, my buddy's seats that he had for the Cowboys game, like you could actually see them when they were checking out Zeke. Like he's like right there at the end of the bench.
Really?
Yeah.
They're checking his head?
Yeah, when they were checking his head. I was like, I saw that on TV. And I was like, and my buddy was just like right back behind him. Huh? Like they were so close, man. Like they were in just a standing little party area. But they actually got to see all the Dallas players like come off the field. And I was going to try to send you the snap, but Jalen Smith like stopped. And I was trying to save it to my phone and it wouldn't work. But he like stopped there and just basked in it. Like just basked all the fans that he walked in. And like everyone else was like throwing gloves and stuff. And he had a glove like go right by his face. I'm like, I'd have punched somebody. Like if it's my team, I'm gonna punch somebody to get what I want.
Right.
You know what I mean? I loved it. We need to go to a game.
Yeah.
I want to go to a game, man. I got game fever.
Packers play the Raiders sometime. We can watch my old team.
I want to go to see them when they play in Vegas because the next time we play the Raiders should be in their home stadium. That'd be a fun trip. Boys weekend, Vegas.
Gathers is playing weak side linebacker in the nickel. This is interesting to note. He's going to have more opportunities for tackles, especially being in the box. Next week, the Colts are versus the Cowboys. I would pick up Autry in a DT required league. There's been a lot of pressure inside that they've allowed to Dak Prescott. For the Texans, Jackson goes 9-11 with 2 pass breakups. Cunningham goes 7 of 9. Reed goes 6 of 8. Matthews goes 5 of 6 with a pass breakup. Watt and Covington both get a single sack, and Hall ends up getting a pick. The D-backs are getting roasted by Luck continuously. They send 4 players each time on a blitz. They keep changing how they're doing this blitz system, but Luck is tearing apart these defensive backs, and that's one of the reasons why these D-backs were so successful in tackles against the Colts. So when I'm thinking about the Jets, I'm thinking about, or when I'm thinking about the Cowboys, I'm going to be playing their D-backs against the Colts. Jackson forces a pick from Hall. He just punches it up in the air, and Hall scoops underneath it. Sharice Wright was beat multiple times in coverage. He was on this Pascal kid. You heard much about him for the Colts? I believe he registered 2 receiving touchdowns. A guy I'm not familiar with. Next week, the Texans are at the Jets. I'm going to be picking up Merciless. Again, this is a hunch. He hasn't had a very good game recently, but I think he ends up getting some edge pressure on the edge. Gets you a couple sacks.
That it?
That's all I got.
All right. Sorry, I was reading the article about K-State's new coach. That'd be interesting. All right. So my next game, speaking of Kansas, I set that up for a segue. Ravens at the Chiefs at Arrowhead, a game that I picked the Ravens to win, and they came overtime short and just took away a little bit of my spirits. But I feel like I won that game because it was so good. Just saying. And I don't say that often about Chiefs game. It was good. All right, for the home team, the Chefs, you have Hitchens going 9 for 7, Ragland 7 for 6, Fuller 7 for 5, 3 pass defenses. The Chiefs played well in the first half and really adjusted to Baltimore's run game. I felt like they were getting eaten up in the run early in the first quarter. About beginning second quarter, maybe about 3 minutes in, they changed it up and they really started stopping the run game. In the second half, Baltimore scores on a 4th and 2 dump off to Williams. He couldn't lose it fast enough, and it was just he almost dropped the ball. Like Ravens had a bad time with tight ends dropping balls, man. They're supposed to be the handy-dandy receivers that catch the ball in the flats. Catch the ball in the flats. Snead is finding pockets in the secondary later on. Reggie Ragland is going to have big numbers with all these runs. Again, I wrote this before. I was watching the game live, and he did end up finishing top 2 tackler. A huge punt return puts the Chiefs back against the wall. I think he returned it almost to the house. I think he got inside the 20, if I remember correctly. 3 plays later, Brown cuts underneath the Chiefs' defense for a touchdown. It was really just a great play call. I really don't blame anyone on the secondary. It was just a really good play. Houston, later on, really helped send this game in overtime. He comes untouched and gets a forced fumble and covers it to get the Chiefs the win, essentially, but then they missed the field goal. So we went to OT.
Yep.
And then in OT, Swanson makes a big pass defense in overtime that really changes the ball. The Chiefs pinch Jackson in overtime, and then they have to bring in RG3 for 2 throws. Which, did you watch the last throw RG3 made? Do you think that's pass interference? Because for me, I've seen them call pass interference on less, in my own opinion, because that was close enough for me to get pass interference. Again, Fuller gets a pass defense to end the game. Probably, I think, should have been called for pass interference, but, it really depends where you're at sometimes, I guess. For the Chiefs, their next game is going to be home versus the Chargers. I really am looking forward to this matchup. I think the Chargers are going to get revenge for the first week 2 loss. I think it's about time for them to get that, and I think they should clinch playoffs if they also win as well. So, they can make it interesting for actual division stuff. So, which, they got a playoff berth, but I don't think they've actually clinched the division title, have they?
No.
For the Chiefs, yeah, because they could lose this game, they'd be tied up. So, hopefully this game's going to be good. For me, I really like Fuller next week because I believe the Chargers are going to have to rely on the passing game a little bit more. And it's a funny little meme I read today, but they're talking about, I guess Phillip Rivers is going to have his 9th kid. And someone put on there, well, he's just trying to figure out, or, trying to fill up seats in the Charger Stadium by himself.
That's pretty good.
I died, man. I was like, I got to take a break for today. It was so good. For the Ravens, the away team, you had Smith going 9 for 9, Pierce going 6 for 6, Mosley going 6 for 5, 2 tackles for loss. Pressure is the name of the game in this one for the Ravens. That's what they were doing, and that's what was working for them. And they went away from it late, and I don't understand why. They were having such success with making Mahomes guess where he's going to go, and I feel like Mahomes gets kind of like a young colt. He starts, maybe he gets a little spooked, and then later on it spooks him again because he thinks he sees the same thing. And and it's one of those that they were creating turnovers by getting pressure on him early and making him make bad decisions. Kelsey breaks out on a route for a touchdown. Judon causes pressure and a bad throw pick by Mahomes to Clark. Clark then can later on not get a wrap up on Kelsey. Ravens can't stop a fourth and 9 to start the fourth quarter. The Ravens just got really bad luck. Mahomes, to his credit, made some damn good throws yesterday. Yesterday. And so I was very impressed with those. He made even a no-look pass. I just like that. I don't care what team you are. I like no-look passes. Weddle almost gets a pick on another bad decision throw by Mahomes. He dove at it, just couldn't quite get it in before it hit the ground. The Ravens stack the line and confuse Home, and he eats the sack. Suggs and Judon are then later on in on a group sack. Mosley stuffs the third down play inside of 2 minutes. That was important because I really got the Ravens a ball back where they could run some clock, possibly run it out enough. The Ravens let Hill get 2 hands on the ball. Yeah, nice. And they convert a 4th and 9. The Chiefs convert another dump off, this time for a touchdown. Suggs then later misses a drop ball by Mahomes that would essentially ended the game, and it was so sad that he missed it. But that happens. That is the NFL. Their next game is going to be home versus the Bucs. I would still rock with Smith, man. I would try to tell you guys he plays better in December than he does any time of the year. And, he was out there tackling yesterday. Again, the Chiefs do spread out the ball. I expect the Bucs to try to do the same thing because they're really all over the place of what they do defensively and offensively.
All right. I've got the Panthers versus the Browns. For the Panthers, Luke Kuechly leads the team. He goes 6 of 11. Jackson goes 8 of 10 with a pass breakup. Davis goes 3 of 6. Reed goes 2 of 4. Munnerlyn ends up getting a sack, and there were no interceptions. Luke does cause a forced fumble, and Davis gets a recovery. This happened twice in the same game.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Reed and Jackson both gave up a deep ball for a touchdown. They were converging, and the ball just fell right in between. One of the most beautiful passes we've seen from Mayfield at the pro level. Luke never gave up on a busted play, and he ends up saving a touchdown run. The Browns look comfortable, like a friend that prefers playing Madden at their own place with their own controller. Running backs wait for blocks to set up, and Mayfield is throwing ropes. Next week, the Carolina Panthers are versus the Saints. Really, it's the same guys each week for the Carolina Panthers. There's nobody I'd recommend picking up at this point. For the Browns, Randall's going to go 8 of 9 with pass breakup and interception. Collins goes 6 of 7. Schobert goes 6 of 7. Garrett goes 4 of 5 with the sack. And the Browns have not given up a sack in 3+ games. Wow. Ian Thomas is becoming a feature for the Panthers offense. Something to watch, especially if you're playing DraftKings over the weekend. Something I enjoyed doing this past weekend. I ended up making money. Kerry got beat by everyone. He baited Cam on a slant route, though. He plays better in the box. It looked like he was going to get a pick 6, but it just hit his mitt and fell to the ground. Garrett gets a forced fumble, and an Ogbah gets a fumble recovery that was later called back. Garrett made a huge tackle for loss, chasing the running back in the backfield. In-body Calhoun is toast over and over and over again. Randall does end up sealing the win for this team. Gets a deep interception on a Hail Mary. Next week, the Browns are at the Broncos. Kerry continues to flash off and on throughout the season. I think he has an opportunity to get a lot more tackles, especially against Case Keenum.
I read a Vikings meme and it said if you spent more than 50 years choking, you'd be purple too. I'm honestly saving that one just for next season. All right, my next game is the Broncos at the 49ers. Surprisingly, I actually really liked watching this game. When I saw it on my games that I was watching, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to like this one. It's pretty damn interesting. I can't lie, because Kittle went off, and he was my fantasy tight end that helped me beat the top scorer in our big money league and a guy who I don't really like, so I'm super excited. I'm going to wait till tomorrow just to start talking crap, because I usually don't talk till the game's over and the points are on the board. So, again, Kittle, thank you, man. I hope you hear this. I hope someone retweets just this little segment of me saying, thank you. I appreciate you. For the 49ers, you have Reed going 12 for 10, 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss. Harris going 7 for 5, 2 tackles for loss, and Sherman going 5 for 5. That's right, Richard Sherman, top 3 tackler. Armstead had a great stop at the line. This is something that I see from him all the time. I just like putting it in because it keeps reminding me that Armstead is a pretty damn good tackler. Exum smacks the wide receiver in the flat for an incomplete. I feel like he's starting to make one of these type of plays every single week. The 49ers are killing the run game and barely producing any notes for me in the first half. That's pretty much it. They couldn't stop the run. The Devil finally reaches the end zone in the third quarter. Let's see. 49ers hold twice on 4th down late in the game. They really kind of came through and played clutch. They had the lead. The Broncos were really trying to get back in this game. I think it was 20-0 at some point in time, or 20-3. They just kept trying to claw back in, and the 49ers just started shutting them down late. Sherman wants a pick play call, but no nuts, no coconuts. It was a touchdown. Their next game is going to be versus the Seahawks, so they're going to be home against the Seahawks. I expect the same type of scoring line. I expect Wagner, my God. I'm all about the Seahawks today, apparently. I would look for Warner to be back in the top 3 next week. So any of y'all who had him and made the next round of the playoffs, don't fret. Keep him in your lineups. For the Broncos, you have Davis going 8 for 5, Simmons 6 for 5, Wolf 6 for 5. Chubb is playing out in coverage in the cornerback spot.
Damn.
Yeah. I was just laughing so hard when I saw that early on in the game. Kettle was eating early, and this continued. I mean, I guess I'll surmise that one. Chubb is now covering Kittle in coverage, which he actually did pretty decent. I felt like, honestly, at some point the Broncos were like, you cover Kittle. Okay, now you cover Kittle. Hey, how about you? Guy in the stands? Cover Kittle. Mm-hmm. I feel like they were doing that at one point in this game. Chubb gets a sack by tackling into the quarterback. That's his 11th sack of the season and only half a sack from tying Von's rookie record, surprisingly. But there's more. Later on, he breaks it with a sack in the third quarter.
I saw that.
Broke Von's sack record for the season. And guess whose lineup he is in? This guy's. I was surprised.
Good luck next week.
I did not expect him.
The Browns haven't given up a sack in 3+ weeks.
I know. Haven't, but they will. All right, so Davis loses Kittle off the line, and he gets a nasty 85-yard touchdown. I even explained this play to Buck earlier today, and I said Davis just basically pointed at him and was like, someone take him. And then Davis didn't really do anything. So I'm like, what were you going to do? Why did you call that? You didn't even blitz or nothing. You just like pointed like, he's there. Somebody. He's there. There he goes. He's in the flat now. Bye. I don't know what he was doing. So still have not figured out that play. Harris almost makes a pick on a screenplay. One of those that literally would have changed the tide of that game for the Broncos. Isaac Yiadom gets in on a strip fumble as the Broncos recover. But on the play, Sua is flagged for holding Kittle. And I'm like, Sua, you just cost him a turnover. Come on, bro. I love you, but come on, man. Later, Von gets a sack. And basically, I put in all caps, Kittle is murdering everyone. Didn't matter. He was just open. Even when he wasn't open, he was open. It was crazy. Yiadom gets beat later on for a touchdown. I think that was also right around the time he got injured. Stewart dives from the deep safety spot to get a pick. And it was one of those that I had to see it in slow-mo because I didn't believe it was a pick. I thought it hit turf, but, man, he scooped that thing up right underneath the ground. The Broncos can't stop a late drive, and that basically seals the win for the 49ers. Again, their next game is going to be at the Browns. For me, I'm still going to stick with my main play callers, but I do like Todd Davis's chance next week. I think the Browns are going to be running a little bit more, especially if it's cold in Cleveland. They do like to do that quite a bit. You're going to have a little orange-on-orange action next week, so it's pretty exciting.
All right, I've got the Bengals versus the Chargers. For the Bengals, Bates goes 4-7. He's kind of been that stalwart for the team. Williams goes 4-6. Dunlap goes 4-4 with a sack and 2 pass breakups. Russell goes 3-4. Never heard of this guy. Paul, you're our insider with the Cincinnati Bengals. Have you ever heard of Russell?
Yeah, I have. I just drafted it, or I just picked him up off waivers today.
I do not doubt it. Ringo gets a half sack and Billings gets a half sack. There were no interceptions. The Chargers are running hurry up most of the game, and the Bengals are terrible at tackling. William Jackson is playing tough defense continuously. This guy is one of those guys that we recommended above Buda Baker. Unfortunately, Buda Baker got a fumble. Tackles alone, Williams would have had more. William Jackson, I got him mixed up. William Jackson is the corner. He's the guy that I'm really high on and have been really high on. I think he plays shutdown corner most of the time. But we've seen him struggle in the beginning of the season, and he's finally coming into that form, playing outside. Hubbard had a sack, but the defensive holding at the end of the half nullified it. The Bengals defense was much better in the second half, losing their 5th game in a row. I believe they gave up 3 points at the end of the game in the second half. Next week, they're versus the Raiders. William Jackson is the guy that I am going to pick up and start because I think Derek Carr will try to attack him. For the Chargers, Adai goes 6 of 8. James goes 6 of 7. Jatavis Brown goes 5 of 7 with a pass breakup. Bosa goes 6 of 6 with a sack. Emmanuel gets a sack. Nwosu gets a sack. No interceptions. I thought Square was in the face of the quarterback continuously. I like seeing this from him. Unfortunately, he didn't register on the stat sheet with a sack. He was creating a lot of pressure for the ancillary pieces. Phillips is playing down in the box as the second linebacker. The Chargers are kind of coming out with a 4-2 look with him as the linebacker. Some could consider this a 4-1-6. Next week they're versus the Chiefs. A guy that I would consider picking up is Phillips. I think he's one of those guys that could have a sneaky game against the Chiefs.
Sneaky sneaks.
All right, Paul, you're up.
All right, my next game was the Cowboys and the Eagles. Eagles going to Dallas for this one. Oh, man, I watched this one in chunks, but I got the gist of the game, basically. For the Cowboys, the home team, you have Smith going 9 for 5 on tackle for loss. Vander going 6 for 4. Awuzie going 4 for 3 with 1 pass defense. Heath had an early tackle for loss. Gregory gets a sack later on. Crawford gets a strip sack on Wentz. Awuzie had a clutch pass breakup later in this game. Lawrence bails out and runs down Wentz for a very small gain. Again, I love seeing D linemen shred their guys and still run down a quarterback. Sproles burns Vander on the outside. I personally loved it because I just laughed. I thought it was funny that Sproles is so old, but he still can burn dudes. Sproles gets Vander again later and causes him to miss as he squeezes into the end zone to get a touchdown. I feel like even if the Eagles don't do anything the rest of the season, I feel like Darren Sproles is going to probably retire after this year. And
that was nasty.
I was hoping he was going to keep getting touchdowns. It sucks that Clemens went down. I'd still like to find out what happened to him, but Yeah, it's just that Vander came up and did like, you know how they rush up and they go, like when you're in practice, and then Vander just got stuck there for a second and he missed him, you know? And Sproles can still do it, man. He may be an old man, but he can still do it. Jones is really becoming a shutdown cornerback, man. This is the second week in a row I've watched him, and he just shuts down dudes. But I really like Awuzie. I feel like their secondary overall was playing very well for the Cowboys. I was pretty impressed by it, honestly. I mean, I know what to expect from the linebackers, but secondary was looking good. I think they just need to go ahead and get rid of Sean Lee and trade him for a couple cornerbacks. They'd be even better off. Their next game is going to be at the Colts. Except I expect, honestly, most of the players to be in play. If you can get Awuzie, I'd go ahead and scoop him. But other than that, just stick with the classic linebacker guys. If you don't have them, don't worry. If you have them, good for you. For the Eagles, you had Bradham going 14 for 7. Jenkins going 11 for 8, 1 tackle for loss. Corey Graham going 10 for 6, 1 pass defense, 1 INT. Jones with a pass breakup, but if he turned his head, he would have had a pick. So I was expecting more from Sidney Jones because I've seen him do it in Washington where he snaps his head around and gets a pick. So he still gets the pass breakup, but I'd rather see an interception, especially since it was so early on and the Eagles kind of got screwed out of that fumble. Bennett with a sack on Dak. Jones is being targeted early in this game. Sidney Jones was constantly there. He did pull up a little bit injured, and I'm just starting to get worried that those freaking him and King are just going to continually keep getting injured, man. They need to get some off-season work and get some muscles in places, I guess, but I don't like what I'm seeing so far. The Eagles do what they do all year and stop the Cowboys in the red zone. They're actually fourth in the league in red zone efficiency and defense. They've had 13 different D-backs start this season.
Damn.
They're trying to be like the Green Bay Packers, man. It's crazy. Douglas keeps the Cowboys out of the end zone with a pick. Has brought it to the 15, another red zone stop. Let me see. Cox is having a big game and he racks up 1.5 clutch sacks. I honestly thought he had 3 sacks. By the time I went and looked at the stats, I was surprised because I felt like he had 3 by himself. But I guess they counted that one as a half sack and the other one, I guess they didn't count him at all. So I think he got gypped out of one. Graham with a pick off a deflection. That was the D-back Graham, not the linebacker Graham. Don't want to get confused. We get a strip sack by Bennett. The Eagles recover. Watch out, Dallas' security. The Bennett boys are in town. Pew pew.
Is that all you got?
Did you not get that?
I did.
The Bennett boys are back in the pew pew. Okay.
I got it.
Bradham is playing with a broken thumb in this game. I thought that was kind of interesting note as well. Jones gets beat by Cooper for a touchdown. Devontae Bansby let Cooper run by him. What the hell was he doing? You saw it. What? He just stopped running like he was like, oh, someone else will get him. Like, I'm just running stride for stride with him. I'm going to let him go.
He's like, he's on Bucks DraftKings.
Good
Better
God.
go get
I was
that.
like, are you serious? I'm like, dude, no wonder you're like a 5th string cornerback. You suck, man.
Come on, Bowlesby.
Come on, man. We expect more from you.
Not really.
The DBs are getting rocked in overtime, and Dallas goes down and wins the game on a deflection. Should have been an interception, but they went on a deflection touchdown. Their next game is going to be at the Rams. Stuff is not looking good because the Rams are going to be hungry for a win because they dropped one in Chicago. So that's it for me on this one.
All right. I've got the Steelers versus the Raiders in this bid for Buck's heart.
Yay!
The Raiders and the Steelers were 2 of my favorite teams to watch as a child. I liked both of them. Again, I've talked about this off air. Grew up a Raiders fan because my dad always liked watching the Steelers. Didn't ever tell my dad because he hated the Steelers because the era he grew up in. So I am a former Raider fan, and the fact that the announcer, Tom Brenneman, keeps pointing out that the players are from Ohio State has me in jubilation. Hankins, Hayward, Conley, etc. I thought it was pretty fun because I do that often. Paul knows that I do that often. I'll be like, oh, look, a Buckeye. Anyways, for the Steelers, Hilton goes 6 of 8 with the sack. Edmonds goes 4 of 7. We're seeing Edmonds kind of pop a lot more recently. Hayward going 4 of 6. Hayden going 3 of 6. Dupree going 1. Tuitt going 1 sack. No interceptions for the Steelers. Cooks and Martin look really pissed off the first drive, and the Raiders march down the field. They were just bashing heads. It was kind of nice to see.
I haven't even seen a highlight from this game yet.
Really?
Yeah.
There's not much to take away. Hargrave shot right by the guard in the backfield to T-bone Martin into another county. It was a beautiful play. It's what you like seeing from your nose tackle, man. Just poof, and then you just keep driving once you do make that contact. It's what I imagine an old lady in a Walmart parking lot would do whenever she like accidentally gets in a wreck with somebody. She just continues to floor it. Hilton is all over the place this game. I got his number mixed up with Sean Davis, who I started, and I kept cheering for him. The dude's fun to watch, man. Mike Hilton, the free agent, came out as a rookie last season. Carr is starting to make big boy throws. He's throwing darts into tight coverage on his first and second reads. Yeah. He's starting to feel this offense, I think, for John Gruden. As I'm writing this, he makes a bonehead fumble as he's rearing back.
That's what I do all the time.
What's that?
And I'll be writing something positive about someone, and they screw up on the next one. I'm like, I give up.
Especially an Edmonds kid. But as he's rearing back, he starts to fumble, and then he just like shoves it. And then Hilton ends up recovering it. I was like, yes! Yes! Give me those points. Come to find out it was Mike Hilton. That being said, Sean Davis does drop an easy pick, and that frustrates me because then I realize that it is Sean Davis and it's not Sean Davis. Next week, they're versus the Patriots. The player I'm going to pick up is Mike Hilton if he's available in a cornerback start one league. Really, the Patriots, like we saw with the Miami Dolphins. With the Dolphins, a lot of dump offs, a lot of attacking the corner. I expect Hilton to be that guy.
Tom Brady making them amazing 3-yard passes
to wide open dudes.
Mm-hmm.
For the Raiders, Whitehead goes 6 of 10, 2 pass breakups and an interception. Harris goes 3 of 8. Melvin goes 7 of 7. Gilchrist goes 4 of 5. McDonald's gets a sack. Kabinda is in the game in spurts, but he loses snaps later on in the game. Lee is playing special teams and making tackles. He is also a starting linebacker for this team. Harris is a safety, who is a starting safety for this team, is playing special teams as well. So you could get additional tackles from these guys in special teams. Interesting note.
Truth.
Nelson and Melvin are both liabilities for this defense.
Which Nelson?
The Nelson out of Wisconsin.
Doubtful. Reggie Nelson's way.
No, he's from Nebraska. Nelson. Right. 2 years ago, he's a rookie.
Nick Nelson?
Maybe. No, he's from Wisconsin.
They have 2 Nelsons on
He's from
team.
Wisconsin. No, not Reggie Nelson.
I think Reggie Nelson's a liability.
Oh yeah, he's old, man. He needs to be replaced. I think Reggie Nelson has actually been replaced by Harris.
Probably, I wouldn't doubt it.
Carl Joseph's playing the other safety position. Again, I'm not a Raider fan anymore, so I don't track this.
Yeah, you do. You just asked me today how many draft picks they had and where they're going to draft at. So
corners are a must for the Raiders in the upcoming draft. We bring this full circle. Hurst is continuously in the backfield.
Yes.
Raiders got to steal with Hankins in free agency, I think.
Yeah. Pisses me off because I fucking dropped him. Ass.
DeMonte Moore, who was signed this week off the streets, is getting a lot of playing time at the right end position. He almost gets a pick on the goal line. This is proving to be a problem for Big Ben. When Big Ben gets in the end zone or near the end zone, he likes to dump it off. These defensive linemen are getting opportunities to make picks. We saw it with Shelby Harris a couple weeks ago for the Broncos. Conley tips the ball, and Whitehead ball hawks it for a pick. He grabs it right before it hits the ground. Really, Whitehead is the only shining spot in Garyon Conley for the Raiders. Arden Key got a forced fumble, but they call it back for holding.
Damn.
Next week, the Raiders are at the Bengals. Who are you starting? You starting D-line?
Against the Bengals, and they don't even have Dalton anymore, do they?
No.
So, yeah, they're probably going to run it, so why not?
Ooh, I think a sneaky play is Maurice Hurst.
I have no problem
He's
with
played
that.
really well lately.
He has. He's played well this whole rookie season, to be completely honest. That dude got screwed over by that heart condition thing. He should have been a first-round pick.
Right.
Should have been middle first round.
Yeah. He's one of those dudes.
He should have gone right after Vita Vea, in my opinion.
He's one of those dudes that we talk about benchmark 4-3 defensive lineman.
He's so good, man. He popped on tape so much. I'm glad the Raiders took a chance on him. But it's like they must have heard our podcast last week because they gave us more defensive line. More Hust. I need more Hust. See, they listened. They're like, oh my God, Christopher Watkins told us more, so they gave us more. All right, my last game is Packers and Falcons. I did save it for last. Cool. All right.
First for last.
For the Falcons, the away team, we're going Poole 6 for 5, Jones 6 for 3, 2 pass defenses, and Campbell 5 for 4, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 dirtbag play. All right, we have Adams with a tight catch over Poole. Adams beats Alford later on, and he gets Adams with too much space in the red zone. Adams scores. Jones with the pass breakup on a long ball by Aaron Rodgers to Graham. Just a really good play coming back to the ball. Up-tempo is making the Falcons get out of position. We've seen this before whenever Atlanta goes to Green Bay. They have this innate opportunity to just get behind really badly, and then they have to try to claw back and just get garbage time touchdowns. That's what happened last time we played the Falcons on Monday night in Green Bay. Same thing. We were up big, and then the Falcons made a game of it because they just got trash touchdowns. Campbell with a sack later on. Not surprised. Green Bay gives up quite a bit of sacks. Poole, cheap shots Rodgers, in my opinion, wasn't called. Don't understand that. He bounced his head off the turf on a slide. I'm surprised he didn't flag Clay Matthews for it. That's honestly what I expected. It was roughing the passer number 52. Wait, he's not out here? Okay, never mind. We're good. Take up the flag. Erdman gets a sack. Came over from Oakland. Oakland dropped him. Now he's with Atlanta. The Falcons are killing themselves with 5-yard penalties. They had one driver, they had 4 of them. So they weren't not helping themselves. They're kind of kicking themselves in the face. Cobb with a touchdown over Neeson, and Jones is running late, and it's basically just putting a dagger in the Falcons game. Their next game is going to be at home versus the Cards. Again, Deion Jones is still going to be there. I feel like this is going to be a higher number game for him because he'll be back inside, and he plays better inside. For the Packers, you have Martinez going 12 of 11. Alexander, 10 for 10. 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass defense. And most of those tackles were covering Julio Jones. And we have Josh Jones going 6 for 5. Alexander gets a early pass breakup, but it got called a catch, which I don't understand. But, hey, sometimes they make good calls like the Dez's non-catch, and sometimes they make bad calls like the Julio catch, right?
Correct.
Jair loses another questionable call. I do love the matchup of him and Julio together. Shallow cross gets the Packers out of the spots, and Julio gets a touchdown. I'm not seeing pressures from the Packers D-line again. This is with Mike Daniels being out for the rest of the season, I wanted more. I wish we had him researched, or Adams would actually play where he was drafted. That'd be nice to see that from him. Breland sees a pass and attacks for a pick 6. He took the ball away from Hooper. Matthews with a sack in the late in the third quarter. Later with a clutch stop as well. Alexander had 2 muff punts. I think he was just trying to run before he got the ball. You got to bring that stuff in your body if you're going to get us extra points in special teams, man. Breland with a bad snap, fumble recovery. And then Brown is beaten coverage with a garbage time touchdown for the Falcons. Their next game is going to be at Chicago. I really look for Jair to really probably work on Robinson. I would say that's going to be the matchup for them too. I honestly expect the same. Josh Jones would probably be my pickup if I had to pick someone up who's not already owned in some league formats. That'd be mine.
All right, I've got the Rams versus the Bears. Have you ever seen a ref on a beard? Or a beard on a ref?
A beard on a ref?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
I don't think I have either.
I wonder if that's a rule.
I wonder if it is too. It's interesting.
All right, I'm looking it up right now.
The reason why I asked this is because the lead official has a neck warmer, and his eyes were darting back and forth as he was giving the play. And I thought he looked like a conehead. This is the first time I've seen this, and I was dead. I was like, what the hell is he doing? Why is he wearing that? It was really cold in Chicago, though. All right, Joyner goes 7 of 7. Littleton goes 6 of 6. Sue goes 6 of 6. Brockers goes 5 of 6. And Franklin Myers gets a sack. Johnson, Peters, Robbie Coleman, and Shields all get interceptions. Fowler almost came up with a sack, but Franklin Myers peeled back on Trubisky to finish him off. Johnson was just inches away with another pick. He does end up getting one later on. Where have we heard this before, though? Fowler being just a couple seconds too late.
I don't know, almost every week.
Right. Next week they are versus the Eagles. Carson Wentz looked pretty bad against the Dallas Cowboys. I thought he struggled to really adapt his gameplay. What are you going to be picking up if you're picking up a Rams player?
If I'm going to pick one up, are you talking just for the playoffs?
Yeah.
I mean, I like Hill.
Peters?
I like Hill.
Really?
I think he gives you that X factor. You know, if I got an extra spot and I can just throw something up and see what happens, I like Hill.
The corner, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I kind of like that. I would go Peters, though, just because of big play. But I do think he may get picked on. Actually, I think Hill's out for the rest of the season. Robbie Coleman's my dude. I'm taking over. Okay. For the Bears, McManus goes 6 of 7. Do you know who this guy is? I think he's defensive lineman. McManus.
McManus?
Yeah. Who is McManus for the Chicago Bears?
Actually, Buck.
Oh my gosh, Brandon McManus. Come on, Siri. Why are you doing this? Prince Mukamara goes 5 of 6 with 3 pass breakups and an interception. Smith goes 4 of 6 with a pass breakup and an interception. Fuller goes 3 of 4 with a pass breakup and an interception. This one is his 7th of the season. Hicks gets a sack, Mack gets a sack, and Goldman gets a sack. Jackson gets an interception. The Bears are sending waves after Goff. Really relentless pressure all game. Mack was double teamed, and it's like he was pinballed into Jared Goff. Jared Goff does happen to get the ball away before he gets sacked. Mack does get a fumble later on. Leonard Floyd almost blocked a punt. Interesting note, if you're in a big punt block league, you missed out on some points. Roquan Smith ended up scooping the ball up before it hit the ground, and he takes it to the 5-yard line. He does almost getting another pick later on. Honestly, I think he's developing into the player that we saw in college and finally hitting strides. Goldman ends up forcing a safety with Hicks. Eddie Jackson comes up clutch on the last drive to shut down Robert Woods. Eddie Jackson's going to be my pickup. I don't think he's highly owned. Next week they're playing the Packers. Where does Aaron Rodgers like to throw? He likes to throw that deep corner.
He likes to throw everywhere.
He doesn't like to check down. But that's it. That's all I got.
I cannot find anything on these damn beards, man.
It's kind of weird, huh?
It's irritating.
You figure they would.
It's just like an unwritten rule. I don't know. I know they weren't allowed to visit. The only thing I did know is they weren't allowed to visit Vegas, like even in the off season. It's a whole betting thing. I don't understand that. I mean, they all take money anyway, so what's the damn point?
Especially in Dallas.
Especially. All right, so looking forward to next week. A lot of people, this is second round playoffs. If you have a shorter one, it may be championship week. This is one of the first years I've won all 3 of my playoff matchups this week. So one in the family, one in the big money, and I won in the dynasty. So feeling pretty good about it. Just got to keep
next week
grinding.
I crush you twice.
Yeah, probably. That's usually how it goes. That's all right. It happens.
I say that, but Paul's going to be up on me, and he's going to be able to gloat whenever he's playing.
I do not gloat unless the game is over. Like I have a major fantasy thing about that.
Really?
I really try not to because I end up screwing myself over every time.
My thing is I don't think it really matters, and I don't do it out of malice either. I don't do it to try and like tear you down.
Yes, he does.
Don't
let him lie on the airs. He does all the time. He's got to bring up Ohio State facts like out of the blue. I'd be like, "Oh man, how's the weather?" Well, in Ohio, it's bright and sunshiny outside. Who do you think they're going to have? Who's going to replace Urban Meyer?
Day.
They're just going to go from within?
Yeah.
I figured.
And they look good with him, but I don't think it's the same offense.
Do you think their recruiting takes a step down, or they still stay the same?
I mean, obviously, Urban Meyer kind of had the leg up on the whole nation.
Yeah. Yep. He can keep a secret. That's for damn sure. But yeah, we're looking forward to scouting. I know I'm definitely in scouting mode right now with college going just to the playoffs and bowl games at this point. I'm already kind of into most of my highlights and stuff like that, just getting little stuff prepared, kind of re-ranking guys as well as I go. So I'm excited. I think there's a good crop, a lot of good pass rushers this year. So we'll have a lot of good pass rusher tape to watch. Just excited to see where everything lands. This is the time of year where I start looking at mock drafts and just imagining in my head if the Saints would have been crappy this year, what we could have had.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping this year we take a stab and like maybe trade Clay Matthews draft day and get us a pick or do something like trade Randall Cobb draft day.
No one is buying Clay Matthews.
John Gruden will buy Jake Clay. They got so many first round picks.
No.
Boom, he does it. I'm gonna buy your Raiders Matthews jersey.
Dude, if you
just think how good he'd look in the Raiders jersey. Just like comes out with his blonde hair. He's got like a black streak in it now.
Yeah.
It's like
he look like Cowser.
Exactly.
Have you ever seen Cowser?
Uh-huh.
He's so freaking ugly.
I would love it. But all right. Well, anyway, I guess if you have anything, again, hit us up on Twitter. You know where our Twitter handle is. IDP Fantasy Empire, idfantasyempire@gmail.com. Leave us a review. Talk about us. Let us know you're still alive. What your team's doing. If you made it or not, man. That's all we want to know. And as always, start building your empire today.